Okay, good morning, Year 9. We're back into week 10, session 2, and I would like to say thank you again. Lovely work coming in from Jack Medlin, Holly Thomas, and other people that send me the work daily. I don't mind seeing that at all. It's lovely to actually just check in with you. And when you do, you just attach it to share my homework. I give you a bonus point, 1 or 2 kudos points, and it's just lovely to see that journey. So I'm really pleased with those people. And anybody else that's sent work in, I'm sorry if I've just haven't dropped your name. Those were the 2 that I've just seen most recently, but it's really good to see you. Okay, still engaging with the learning, still being focused. Okay, so yesterday we were looking at this concept of style. So just to give you that overview again of where we started. So we are talking about future outcomes. In other words, this speech will be part of your GCSE. So it does have a very real impact on your future outcomes. So we have looked in our lessons at these areas so far. So we've understood ethos, logos, pathos. We're now we did the invention last week where we chose a topic that we might have a moral duty to speak about. I was using child labour as a shared example, but you'd have chosen your own. We've recognised that there's a particular form of arrangement of organising your ideas in a speech. And we've began to look at this concept of style. So that as a speech writer, as a speaker, you can decide whether you're going to go for that very high style, very elaborate, full of metaphor, whether you're going to go for a middle style, which combines elements of the 2 really. So there's still metaphor and rhetorical features, but with moments of clarity and kind of like colloquial language. Or there's the very low style, which is all colloquial and conversational. Now, I would say from a GCSE point of view, we don't want to use that low style. The conversational, colloquial speech writing, that can work, is not, though, what they're looking for this assessment. So we're going to be aiming to create a middle to high style as we move forward today. And it is actually time to begin to write our speeches. So I just wanted to confirm what we've done. Now, I do need to just say here as a note of caution, if you have been catching up on other lessons, if you have been behind on any of these stages, really it's important that you go back and any of these areas that you've not done, that you actually pause this lesson and you complete those activities, because actually you cannot write your speech, as it says here, isn't it? It's time to begin to write our speeches today, if you haven't done some of the prior activities. Similarly, if you've not completed activities and you just try and write your speech, you'll end up frustrated and a bit exasperated because you'll potentially run out of things to say, or you won't have the necessary elements to write a speech that will be awarded highly. Okay, so I'm just going to go through this list with you. You can mentally tick it off. Okay, if there's anything you haven't done, just maybe highlight it or write it down and say, okay, I'm just going to pause in a minute and go back and do that. Okay, my lovelies. So we should have all chosen a topic. Okay, so we all have a moral duty to end child labour across the world was my topic. So you should have all chosen something that you feel a duty, an obligation, that it's important for you to do something about it. So the other examples we saw in previous learning might be we all have a duty to end homelessness in the UK. We all have a moral duty to reduce the amount of plastics going into the ocean. We all have a moral duty to address racial injustice. We all have a moral duty to ... So actually you can see, although we didn't mention it last week, we are trying by using this phrase moral duty to get away from, banning homework. This is meant to be really social issues that we're dealing with in these speeches, okay? So you should have chosen a topic. Now your topic, you'll know it will be a good topic if you can write it into that sentence. We all have a moral duty to ... So if you've got that, you're happy with your topic, tick that one off. So then we did the invention stage, okay? And we talked about that part of the invention stage, this term from rhetoric meaning planning, was to create a table of potential arguments. Okay, so we had a table where we had to say 3 reasons why or because we have a moral duty to end child labour because it's cruel, because children are losing their childhoods, because it's exploitative and immoral. So we did the arguments table. Also, we had time to gather facts and statistics to do our research. Now, the etc., you could have chosen a spokesperson. You could have, as part of your research, found a real story from somebody involved. So, for example, if you're looking at homelessness, you might have found on one of the websites a story from somebody who was homeless and through recovery, through a program, is now got a home and is turning their life around. So again, if at this point you're like, oh, yes, no, I did not do that. I did not do my research. I didn't do that table. You need to pause, and that's what you need to focus on today. You need to ensure these earlier stages are done, because otherwise the whole element of what comes next will kind of collapse in on itself like a bad souffle. It will all kind of deflate and you'll end up exasperated because you won't have the tools you need to do the next stages. But imagining you've done that, you can tick that one off. We've also been introduced to the arrangement, okay, and know the shape of a speech. So we've not used the arrangement stage yet. We've not actually, sorry, we've done a bit of planning around the arrangement, and we know the shape of a speech that begins with character, setting, rising action, the climatic idea, the falling action, and the ending. And we had a table to complete, again, at a planning level. So far, everything has been really about planning, not writing. And we've also been introduced to some of the style choices we can make. So we've got a lot of material kind of occupying separate places, maybe in our books and our notes. So today we're going to introduce a way to plan and write a paragraph. So we're going to start small. We're going to turn our ideas, our seeds of ideas, into paragraphs, and those paragraphs will accumulate over time, okay, to create the whole speech. So one last time for the cheap seats at the back of the room. If you're looking at this list and you're like, oh, I haven't done that, you need to pause. And this is where you are going to have to show a little bit of autonomy, a little bit of independence and self-control, because you'll need to hop back onto YouTube, maybe find the right lesson that covers that area and have a look again at the bits you've missed. Okay? The other way to do it is to see what's going to happen next. And if you think, oh yeah, I've got enough information to do that, stay with us. Or if you think I haven't, pause. So we're going to plan and write a paragraph today. Now, our paragraph that we're going to plan and write today is all about this opening section of our speech. So as part of our arrangement, it's all to do with the character. It's all going to be to do with creating an impression of yourself, greeting the audience, maybe introducing anecdote or facts or another feature, and making it clear what we're writing about. Okay, so that's what we're going to look at today. You can see we've got setting, rising action, climax, falling action, and ending. So potentially we are looking at a speech that as a minimum has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs. Okay? But we're going to do it really slow and steady. We're going to start with sentences and we're going to grow them into paragraphs. Okay? And today we're going to achieve that by writing a really strong opening paragraph about character. Okay, so let's have a look how we're going to do it. Now, how are we going to do it? I'm going to teach you this method of how can we build one sentence into at least 4. How can we build sentences into paragraphs? And this is called the get the job done method. Okay, because if we think long term, we've said that this could be a speech that you are recorded speaking, but actually in GCSE there's a paper, it's called English Paper 2, and this is often the kind of writing task they'll get you to do, write a speech, write an article. So actually elements of this will have real value, not just for a speech that you're writing now that you're going to be recorded doing, but actually also for that part of the paper, being able to structure and sustain a written response in a particular way. So as I talk through this, guys, okay, I would like you, I know it's quite a listening element at the beginning here, just to listen. Unless you're doing the sentences on child labour, unless you're doing the topic of child labour, you don't need to write this down. Okay, are you happy with that? I don't want anybody rushing to write this down, but I do want you to really listen. Now, if you know you get distracted when you're listening, you're looking over your shoulder, all you could simply do is just make a few notes or just write down some keywords. But I don't need to write this whole thing down, but it's something that's going to keep you focused. So we're going to build one sentence into at least 4. So the ratio I want to introduce today then is that within this sort of speech writing, writing that's designed to be persuasive or argumentative, we're looking at kind of like paragraphs of about 4 sentences as a minimum. So there might be some of you that end up writing more than 4 sentences in a minute, and that is fine. But at the same time, it is about control. And it's reminding us that our speeches, when we write them, will be organized into paragraphs. And that in itself is such a key aspect of writing at GCSE as well, isn't it? Paragraph structure. There are occasional paragraphs that will break the 4 sentence or more rule. Okay, and I will look at those with you in a future lesson. So we need a topic sentence. Now, a topic sentence really means the opening sentence of any paragraph. Yeah, it introduces, it's like Ron Seal, the topic, and it determines what the focus of that whole paragraph is going to be about. So in a way, the topic sentence is the seed that all the other ideas are going to grow from. Now, the first one for all of us is we're going to turn our topic sentence of we have a moral duty to do something into our opening. Now, I've just added some other stuff, some other phrases that illustrate that this topic sentence is also making it really clear it's a speech. Okay, so I'm just going to read it to you. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me as I share with you my belief that we have a moral duty to end child labour across the world. Okay, now that's a clear topic sentence. It's made good afternoon, so I've greeted my audience, I've set the time of day, I've thanked them for joining me, so I'm creating a relational aspect. So that's that idea of ethos. Okay, hello, welcome. And I said I'm sharing with you my belief. So I'm showing that this is something I'm genuinely interested in and caring about. So remember, those are all features of ethos. And then I've introduced really clearly what it is I'm going to be speaking about. That we have a moral duty to end child labour across the world. Now, in a minute, every single one of us can do that sentence for your topic. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me as I share with you my belief that we have a moral duty to reduce the amount of plastic making its way into the ocean. That we have a moral duty to end homelessness in the UK. So you'll see in a minute that that's going to be your topic sentence. Now, some people would do that and actually look at that sentence and think, well done me, woohoo, got a little bit of ethos, I've got some ideas there, I'm moving on. But you'd be moving on too quickly. We have to grow this seed, this topic sentence. It is only one sentence, there's my full stop at the end, into 4. Now, I'm going to show you 4 ways that we can do that. Are you ready? Okay, so the first way, now this one can sometimes end up being more than one sentence, is we look at the topic sentence. Interesting. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining me. Moral duty, child labour. And I ask myself, are there any words there that I need to explain what they mean? Are there any words where I need to offer definition? And I might think, well, actually, that word moral duty is it's a strong expression, but not everybody might know what that means. So can you see in my definition amplification box, I'm potentially going to write a sentence that explains whilst a moral duty refers to. Sometimes we might say, well, what does it mean by moral duty? Okay, so I'm going to define moral duty. And I've also said, well, I've got to make it really clear what I'm talking about. This is the importance of speeches, yes, that we have clarity as well as high style. So I also need to explain what I mean by child labour. So my first sentence, good afternoon, and thank you for joining me as I share with you my belief that we have a moral duty to end child labour across the world. Child labour is defined as being any form of work that a child under the age of 18 is forced into doing that deprives them of their education and impacts on their health. So I've defined it. Okay, so if you were talking about plastic pollution, yours might say plastic pollution is defined as being. Plastic pollution refers to. What do I mean by plastic pollution? There's a simple answer, or it's a complex answer. So in this first topic sentence box, we've got our sentence. Now we've grown it into a second sentence by defining it. Now you could do one sentence, child labour is defined as being. You could do a second sentence, whilst a moral duty refers to. So that's what we mean by definition. We're going to look at our topic sentence. Are there any words in there that I need to define? But it also talks about amplification. That sometimes there might be an idea in our topic sentence that we want to make bigger. We just want to explain a little bit more about it. Amplify means to magnify and make bigger. Make a bigger sound around something. If we're musicians, yeah, we turn the sound all the way up to 11. So it might just be, well, what do I really want to draw attention to? Now, really, all of us want to draw attention to the topic that we're writing about. So it says here, child labour includes. So now I'm not defining child labour, I'm expanding and amplifying what it means. And if you remember from that research task a few lessons ago, we recognised that child labour includes, exploitation, slavery, working in ways that puts lives in harm. So that's what I'm going to put